And on the left side of Bridgehead, we're looking at the main base of our red Protoss player, the world champion of 2013. Give it up for sOs.
True money man, if there ever was one in Starcraft 2 Rotterdam. I'm very excited to see if he busts out the money gates, but perhaps Rogue is going to go for the money hatch. We've seen this mad build before.
We've seen this build in the first few weeks that Bridgehead got introduced to the ladder map, where us Protoss players, the whiners that we are, we said impossible to stop. But then we realized, like, wait a minute, it's actually not impossible. If you just scout it, there are multiple ways.
If you just, prepare, try to figure it out, plan around the different things, there are ways to handle it. sOs, this game, looks like he wants to go with a Nexus first, a very greedy play. Kev, tell me, does this make it that much more difficult for him to defend whatever push comes from this hatchery?
It's very difficult, but I think you can still stop it if you just get your forge on time. Like, sOs is scouting around right now that he didn't find a hatchery in the back of the main base. That's kind of weird. That he doesn't see here, that's becoming very weird. Now he's gonna go to the top, because some Zerg players, they like to take the hatchery in the right top side of the map. And now sOs is like, all right, I know what's going on. You're most likely on the right side of my rocks. So now I'm very curious, is that a forge?
Okay, yes, it is a forge. He's gonna use it to block off part of that front ramp. Of course, those back rocks are where the area gets vulnerable. 2 drones are being sent out. The spawning pool is going to finish at a time where Rogue will be able to start 2 spine crawlers. Those will bash those rocks down very quickly, and with the gas that he's mining, he can follow it up with a very fast Zergling speed push.
Yep, and that is going to be the idea. Knock down these rocks and just run by with as many Zerglings as possible. Sometimes they throw in Banelings in the mix as well, because a couple Protoss players, they build a lot of cannons, and that's great, don't get me wrong. But if all cannons are next to each other, well, then 3-4 Banelings can take care of it. So I'm very curious to see how sOs is going to go about defending this. He's making one Zealot, which I'm actually a little bit surprised by, because I don't think you need the Zealot right now. I would focus on getting cannons near my rocks. He cancelled the Nexus, by the way.
Yeah, very interesting response here we're seeing from sOs. His front wall has that small gap for the workers to move in and out of, so perhaps the Zealot is to block that off. But what does he do about the creep spread that's going to come? You know, the spine crawlers will eventually start pushing through. He'll take over the natural, spread creep everywhere. sOs needs a game plan to get rid of these forces.
I'm a little bit shocked. He's going to get a cannon, but it's going to go in his main mineral line. But the thing is, if I'm Rogue right now, I will just spread some creep, and eventually I'm going to macro up behind this. Of course, you're on one base, but it's very difficult for a one-base Protoss to attack the Zerg eventually. So I do not feel that sOs can win this game on multiple bases if he doesn't clean up whatever is going on the north side of his main base right now. Unless he wants to win on one base, but we saw that with Lilbao against Live. It's very difficult to run across the map if you only have, you know, a pylon, a probe, and there are speedlings running around.
Yeah, we talked about the madness of a matchup like this can bring. Fun to see it start off from a player like Rogue instead of sOs.
Yeah.
Very important to note that probe, of course, being picked off means any type of counter harass not going to be an option now.
Massive pickup. That probe in the right top side, that could have been a probe that warp in a pylon, which would allow sOs to actually successfully 3 or 4 gate. The fact that he shot this down, and there we see sOs is going to try it again, because he realizes if I want to win this game on one base, I need to sneak a probe to the other side of the map. Otherwise, this probe is going to get picked off over and over again, and I can never actually commit to my attack.
Now we see sOs is first person. He's trying to set up that wall to help make it more difficult for those Zerglings to run by and push. He sees the spine crawlers coming, but like you said, Kev, that probe is making its way across the field.
Yep, that probe is actually the MVP right now. If I'm Rogue and I see the amount of cannons over here, he's gonna see what's happening over here in the front. And there's only one Zealot.
That Zealot in the wall, very weak. There's the force field to block those Lings away, but it's only a matter of time before they come back.
But if I'm sOs right, or excuse me, if I'm a Rogue right now, I'd say let's just let it go. You know, I have him contained on one base for now. I got a crazy amount of Lings. Let's just make sure that I don't die, and let's just expand, because I actually have all the freedom in the world to expand, while well, it's going to be very difficult for him to expand.
Yeah, very tense moment here. That Zergling speed is ready. Warp gate's about to complete, but sOs, he's stuck in on one base. The spine crawlers are trying to move forward. Here come the Lings. The sentries need to step away. There's the first few force fields. One of the sentries does get caught at the bottom side. Photon overcharge is activated as well. The Zealots are dead, and the spine crawlers have rooted themselves. First photon cannon will fall. Second photon cannon out of shields. The Zerglings, however, have been cleaned up.
Yeah, I think there is just way too much firepower here for sOs. If I'm a Rogue, I would just stop this. Like, you got so much creep over here, and I would just transition out of this. He's down 9 workers though. He lost a lot of Zerglings there. With Photon Overcharge and 4 and 5 cannons, that is almost unbreakable.
Yeah, a lot of larvae, a lot of resources thrown into that meat grinder by Rogue. And Force Field there grabs a queen, possibly a second one. A phenomenal pickoff as this solidifies sOS's defensive posture.
And by now, sOS can start thinking about attacking, and that's why he's whopping in his first pylon on the right side of the map. He has to be very careful, because if he wipes in 4 units and they get spotted, they will get surrounded, they will get picked off. He's gonna wipe in the Twilight Council as well. And guys, if you love Dark Shrines, sOS is your Protoss to go.
Yeah, man, the Dark Templar play we have seen, even in that PvP series yesterday against Rain, was some of the most gnarly stuff we've ever seen. This probe's going to show itself, and now Rogue knows, hey, wait, you probably have a pylon out of the map now. Why would he do that, Ken?
I have no idea why he did that, Nate. I guess he really wants to see if Rogue has an expand in the back of his natural, so he will get that confirmation. But you are spot on. That probe is a huge tell. No Protoss in his right mind would send a probe to the other side of the map when he's on one base and not at least wipe in a pylon.
Yeah, so now it's something he's have to keep his eyes open for. He sees that a hatchery is just now starting in that natural. There's the Dark Shrine that you mentioned, Roddy, and he has a pylon actually going down in the mineral line area of that natural. He doesn't seem to be aware of it.
Nope. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Rogue is keeping all his Zerglings on the left side of the map. 3 Zealots, I'm not sure if that's enough, but if he wipes in 1 or 2 more, he's definitely going to be able to get a cancel on that hatchery. This Oracle is probably going to scare the hell out of Rogue, and he might make a panic Spore Crawler and then cancel it, and then later on realize that he does really need a Spore Crawler, because let's not forget, he is still on hatchery tech. There is no layer for Rogue, and no layer means no Overseers.
That's right. This Oracle moves in as bait, as you said, Kev, but no Spore Crawler finds the pylon out here, and the scary thing is, seeing this pylon could bait him into moving all of his Zerglings over there. The 6 Zealots are making their way to the main mineral line. If they can get themselves covering each other's backs into a choke point, those Lings will never break the position.
Yeah, and that's not the only thing. These Zealots will buy time. The moment the Lings are fighting these Zealots, that pylon survives in the right bottom side.
The Dark Shrine's almost done.
Oh, the Lings are going for it.
They're going to see the pylon. These 2 Zealots, shoulder to shoulder against it, are trying to hold that position.
Here we go.
These 2 are on the way. There's nothing here that can see these Dark Templar. They start to hack and slash away at these Zerglings. The lair begins. Where's the Spore Crawler, Rogue?
It's going to be so hard to get a Spore Crawler up. These 2 Dark Templars running into the main pay. He didn't even start it yet, Nate. It's just now starting. He needs to keep this Spore Crawler alive. Otherwise, this game is 100% over.
These DTs are on a safari hunt, cutting down Zerglings on their way to that Spore Crawler, Kevin. If they kill it, it's over. GG. So many StarCraft fans. It's been a great weekend. So much news. We got to go over all the awesome Legacy of the Void feels this morning. It's a good time to be in StarCraft.
It's been a great weekend, and it's been a great year. I think this entire WCS year has been very, very entertaining. We've had so many great finals, and hopefully we'll have one more later today. But for now, of course, all eyes on the second semifinals here. Rogue again sending out a drone scout very early on. Potentially
He's not going to do anything crazy, Kev. No, surely not.
I mean, if you don't see a gateway yet, I wouldn't mind if he tries to drop the hatchery over here. And sOS seems to be quite worried about it as well. This is very annoying to deal with as a Protoss. That's why he's just pulling 2 probes immediately.
Perhaps he recognized the Nexus first in the last game and says, I'd like to punish that this game if I can.
Yep. And if you only have 1 probe there and your probe is not in the right spot and he morphs in that hatchery, you just hate life as a Protoss, because then you're like, man, I gotta start a forge somewhere, I gotta start my gateway, my Nexus is going to be incredibly late, but sOS made sure that he didn't have to deal with that.
And Rogue also started his hatchery at a very appropriate time back at his own base, so he wasn't gonna try to force that, you know, I guess trying to see what is going to be up at the base. You know, important to notice whether or not Rogue will be going for a gas follow-up if you want to do a big speedling play. You know, it's not uncommon that you could fake your opponent out and be like, oh yeah, I'm going fast 3 hatcheries before a pool, and you think, oh, they're going economy. No, then they just use that 3rd hatchery for a little bit of extra larva, push out a lot of Lings, and catch you off guard.
You know what's interesting as well? The guys at the couch mentioned it. So far, sOS has only played Protoss versus Protoss in this tournament. Rogue on the other end, he has played every single matchup already. He played a ZVT in the round of 16, played a ZVZ in the round of 8, and now he's here going up against the Protoss. Obviously quite difficult for him to prepare for every single matchup. You know, when you're playing at this big stage, you know that your opponents are going to be very well prepared, and it's very hard to be, you know, evenly as good in all 3 matchups. That pretty much almost never happens. You know, every player has a matchup matchup they prefer and kind of dislike.
Yeah, and it's also, cool to note that Life is certainly going to be watching this match very closely, particularly if SOS is able to advance. He'll have, a good couple of games to look at. Be like, okay, well, this is sort of the opening you like. Maybe you're playing a little bit greedy this tournament. SOS may not feel comfortable doing these strategies were he to advance.
Yeah, it would be such a different series as well. Like in the last semifinals we saw Life being the crazy player out of the two. Classic trying to go for the normal games, other than, I guess, the Dark Shrine on Iron Fortress that didn't really work out. But other than that, he's a very passive, solid Protoss, likes to just defend, kind of old school Rain. In this series, on the other end, SOS is the type of Protoss that just makes it so hard for the Zerg players to figure out what they are playing against. One game is going to go one gate Stargate, sometimes one gate Twilight, sometimes, it's just quick into 3 bases. There is no such thing as, I know what SOS is going to do over here, because he just switches it up all the time, and it makes it very difficult for a Zerg to be ready for everything.
Yeah, interesting that Sentry gets pushed back, has to drop that force field. There's a Forge on the way inside SOS's main, but Kev, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it hurt him to lose that force field that early on? Because I feel like a hallucinated Phoenix Scout would be pretty useful a minute or two now.
Yeah, it's not nice, but I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. 2 gateways being warped in, right out of vision of this Overlord. It seemed like Rogue kind of picked up on it, but I don't think he saw it there. I think the Overlord died right before he could catch a glimpse of those 2 gateways. Yes, he didn't see it. So it's just going to be 3 gate and +1 so far. SOS can take this in so many different routes. He can go for a massive 2-base attack, but that's not what I'm expecting. I kind of expect him to just go up to 3 bases very quickly. He knows that Rogue is focusing a lot on his economy on his side of the map, even though he is bringing out a probe, Nate.
Well, if he sets himself up here,
okay,
taking the forward third, is this normal on this map? Usually I see Protoss go for the bottom one next to the natural.
It's definitely not normal, but it's very interesting. I mean, if he stabilizes it, that's going to be very nice, because it's going to be very hard for Rogue to swing around. And if he ever wants to attack this base, he's going to have to go up this ramp, the ramp that the Zergling is walking up right now. This one Ling gets very close.
He's going to spot that Nexus. Very important information here for Rogue. Knowing that this base is so forward out, it's also easier for him to attack were he in a position to do so. But he doesn't have Zergling speed. He doesn't have a Roach Horn yet, doesn't have his lair yet. He has, as you said, Kev, focused so much on economy. I don't know that there's a real proper way for him to punish this base.
He even went up to layer before Zergling speed, so there is a chance he can drop a very early Hydralisk then, and it's going to be even shorter for the Hydralisk to make their way across the map and actually start fighting this Protoss army. Of course, force fields will be very scary and intimidating, but Hydras in general do very well against gateway units, unless the force fields are godlike and only a couple of Hydras at a time are able to shoot.
Yeah, we have these sentries being a little bit, bullyish out on the map, looking for a few units to pick off here, clearing out those towers. Rogue sitting at 61 drones now as SOS starts up a few more gateways. His +1 attack is almost done. He has Blink starting up. So what are the odds that we see this turn into one of those big 2-base or 3-base Blink Stalker pushes with a lot of sentries?
I definitely think that's where SOS wants to go, but it takes time, right? It takes time to get all those things going for yourself. Rogue on the other end, he starts up Tunneling Claws. He starts up Burrow. He spots this army as well, but this is not a very terrifying army if it steps on creep. You could see though that Rogue is a little bit paranoid, and he kind of gives in the reputation that SOS has as he dropped the Spore Crawler in every base, making sure he doesn't die, or lose a lot of drones to an Oracle, make sure he doesn't die against Dark Templars again. And these are small things that do help out SOS, because that's going to make the push of Rogue a little bit weaker, because these spores, they will do absolutely nothing. I mean, contrary to popular belief, Spore Crawlers are not good against Blink Stalkers, Nate.
All right, I will take your word for it, Kev. Of course, you guys can let us know who you think will advance to the grand finals to play against Live. Tweet the hashtag WCS with hashtag SOS or hashtag Rogue. This Zealot at the wall is getting battered down. Emergency pylon is warped in to block it off. The Zealot barely lives, Kev.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting soon. Like, Rogue is going to squeeze out as many units as he could possibly can, most likely. But it's so risky to attack, throughout the middle, because he's going to have to go up that ramp. He will have Tunneling Claws, and he does have Burrow. But at the same time, it's still very hard, because if the force fields are very good, the Hydras will be zoned out, and just Roaches are not going to cut it against gateway units and a Photon Overcharge and a cannon. So that's why maybe he's throwing down the Infestation Pit.
Yeah, Blink and +2 are both very close to finishing up. So this is where this army really starts to ramp up in power, since those force fields, Guardian Shield phenomenal against those Hydras. The force fields, of course, can really punish any positional errors being made by the Zerg. And then those Blinks, well, they just make the sky the limit in terms of micro for the Protoss.
Yeah, I would love to see Rogue really focus a lot on spreading his creep as far away as possible, because SOS still doesn't have a robotics facility. He sometimes just doesn't make one. A couple of Stalkers getting a in some trouble. These Hydras have to be careful, though. They don't have speed yet.
Yeah, very intense moment here as these Stalkers actually do give chase, pick off one or two of the Hydras. They step on the creep, but Roach is sharking over to the main base and the natural. Can SOS keep the pressure up while defending the pressure back home?
This is going to be very risky. I feel Rogue's army here is not that big, but at the same time, SOS is going to have to take care of these Roaches. And this is so annoying. He still doesn't have a robotics facility. Even if he warps in units here, if SOS babies, or excuse me, if Rogue babysits them properly, SOS can kill them.
Oh, that burrow is so frustrating in this position. The Hive is over halfway done. Hydralisk speed is about to finish up. SOS is just going to push in. That concave from the Zerg Force is so nice. Guardian Shield is popped. A lot of force fields are used. There's still a good number of them left, but maybe one or two waves of force fields from those sentries.
If Rogue defends this one time, I think he's going to be in an absolutely phenomenal position, but this is a very, very scary and intimidating army by SOS. And that Hive, I'm not sure why he's rushing up to Hive. Maybe Blinding Cloud or something, but I feel right now he just needs units, Nate.
Yeah, these first force fields are going to get thrown by the third base. That fourth is done in the northeast, but there's no drones there, so to speak of. He needs to push this third. He needs to kill drones. A few more probes going to die back home. There's a Guardian Shield. He's stepping up the ramp. Force fields these units in with the Time Warp as well. Mothership, of course, is going to go down, but there are the blinks. Drones coming off the mineral line. Rogue putting all of his eggs in the basket to try and defend this push, but will workers be enough? It doesn't look like it, Kev.
Well, he has a lot of units on the way, but he needs all of them at the same time in the same place. Maybe these Hydras can turn this battle around, but so far the blinks are excellent.
Force fields are too good as well. Those drones getting bottled up behind the Hydras. 16 of them have fallen already. Overlords starting to die. The Hydralisks are having a really tough time doing it by themselves, Roddy.
Yep, the Roaches did kill a bunch of probes on the other side of the map, but Rogue somehow, some way, needs to stop this army, and I just think it's not going to be enough.
I mean, he even threw the Spore Crawler at him, but it's not going to be enough. And the man who stands to go up against life to fight for the first man to be two-time world champion. Give it up for SOS!
As we are getting ready for our game on Iron Fortress, we do know that they are spawning on horizontal positions, which I think in general is a good thing for Protoss. It allows you to do some plays that are not normally possible when it's cross-map. It's a lot easier to go for strong two-base attacks, and I think Rogue is not super happy with it. It's not the end of the world, but I think this is the best-case scenario for SOS.
Yeah, you know, this map cross spawns has usually been a position that favors the Zerg. You have such a large distance to go to put any pressure on, but this horizontal spawn, it's so nice that he knows this early as well. Can really influence the strategy that SOS chooses to go for, and likewise Rogue.
I think SOS is almost sad that he scouted Rogue immediately, because I think he was looking for some crazy cannons over here. We know that SOS loves his cannons in this matchup. We saw that in 2013, but even this year at multiple tournaments, DreamHack Stockholm, in the MSI as well in Seattle, he still loves to drop his cannons whenever he can. But when the probe shows up that early in the main base of a Zerg player, you have to be very crazy as a Zerg to still go hatch first when you're playing against SOS.
Yeah, Probe does a cheeky little job of trying to block that hatchery from being placed as SOS starts up his Nexus. And, you know, pretty comfortable position economically speaking. Both players get their expansion started at the same time, but 6 links, Roddy, talk to me. What does it mean? Yeah,
I kind of like that. This is just something to be annoying with, because you're going to force SOS to make a Zealot immediately, and I don't think that Zealot is going to... Oh, he's actually supply block. Wow.
Oh.
Wow. That's a really big supply block. I mean, this is just normally not something that fits in your build, right? If you're Protoss, you don't want to make the Zealot that early. If it's... You know, if it's really necessary, you make it, but you don't want to.
Ooh, it's really important this probe sees them too. Of course, SOS wants to keep his probe alive out on the map. One Ling will get sent over to try to hunt it down, but at least now he knows he can finish his wall off and be aware that that threat is certainly there.
Yeah, but I think... I guess the Zealot will be out just in time. I'm very curious to see what Rogue's going to try to achieve with his couple Zerglings over here, and if they are somehow able maybe to sneak by, but that shouldn't happen.
And Zealot's got broad shoulders, Kev, trying to block that base, but he doesn't want to step past the wall. Those Lings could run by and check how many gas geysers he's mining from. Well, Zealot he's going to be forced to use it to try to fight.
Oh, and you definitely don't want to lose your pylon this early. That could also unpower the gateway, I think, if you would be able to get it in time before that second Zealot. All Links do get in, though.
Okay, well, this gets really dicey right now. Has to cancel the pylon to get the Zealot back in. There's the kill on the pylon, so no more Zealots, but the second one did finish. He can spread them between his bases and try to hunt down those Links.
That really makes SOS's life so much easier. If you have to deal with this with only a single Zealot, it just becomes very frustrating. He does, however, have the Mothership 4 on the way, and I think it's almost done.
Well, on the way, he's supply block for a little bit longer because of that pylon kill.
This is just very frustrating. I think he's sending his Mothership Core across the map. He wants to know if there is an extractor, you know, if Rogue is mining gas. Does he have to worry about a crazy amount of speed links, something we saw live do multiple times? Or is this just a macro-oriented opening for Rogue, where he's just trying to be very, very annoying with his Zerglings?
And that Zealot did get sent straight away across. Now, this Queen is off creep. She's helpless, cannot defend herself. That without the creep, she moves too slow to run away. So the Zealot gets a nice kill. Big pickup, actually, denying the first inject on that hatchery and possibly a creep tumor or two, but those Lings still being equally annoying on the other side of the map.
Yep. But I do think it's very important there. Picking up that Queen, that's going to make his life a lot easier. It's going to make it a lot harder for Rogue to spread creep. And we saw that in the previous series. The more creep, the better, especially because sOs is the type of Protoss that often delays his robotic facility. So picking up a Queen in this phase in the game is a pretty damn big deal. And he starts working on that hatch. He should never be able to kill it. But this is very frustrating for Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, just think about in the long run, this hatchery now is a big target for sOs to snipe later on. It's already lost half of its hit points. Any gateway push could possibly kill it and just recall out later.
3 more gateways are on the way, but sOs does actually have a probe, I believe, on the top side of the map, right? That's 4 gateways,
boy.
Nate.
Yeah, he's going way up. This is going to be a really big push. Another gateway gets added, 6 total. Oh boy.
And Zergling's speed is not even ready yet. If this probe somehow, some way finds that, that Zergling finds the probe, that would be massive. But
7 gateways now.
This is going to be extremely difficult for Rogue to defend.
He's starting spores. He's gonna be like last game, man. He's gonna be walking his spores into the other armies, saying, "Please be useful."
He's in a lot of trouble, Nate. Defending this without Zergling speed is extremely difficult. He will spot those units, but I love how sOs was sending a probe towards the third base as well, giving his opponent the idea. He's like, don't worry, man, I'm going up to 3 bases as well, Rogue. He's not. He's 7-gating you, and you need literally everything you have right now to somehow defend this.
And this is going to be very difficult for Rogue to stop. And, you know, this has to be everything. If he loses this fight, if he loses this base, he loses the match and his chance at finally becoming a world champion in StarCraft 2. The spores are put forward. They're going to help push the Mothership Core back. It's something, but the first warriors are going to get dropped. The Lings do not have speed walking up to these sentries. One of them does get picked off, but the Queens are all isolated, and those warp gates are finishing up, Roddy.
Yep, 30 Zerglings are on the way, but more and more Zealots will be warped in for sOs, and this is really not good for Rogue. His Roach Warrant was so late. You need Roaches against the Zealots, because by the time he has the Lings now, he needs something else, and it's going to take so long before those Roaches are here.
Yeah, these Zealots are a great deterrent to these very slow Zerglings. The Queens very low on health as well. They can't fight back. Time Warp's going to slow down the reinforcements. The Zealots get on top of all of the Zerglings. The Stalkers beautifully tucked between these forces, and everything is just dying, falling apart for Rogue here in the second semifinal of the World Championship Series. More Stalkers coming in. The next Warp in Zealots. He's got a pylon right on top of that rip. There's nothing here for Rogue to fight back with.
He has nothing left, Nate. All the Zerglings died before the Roaches arrived, and that's just not the way to stop a 7-gate. It was going to be very hard regardless, but sOs, he just didn't make any mistakes, and he's in a phenomenal position right now. He can end it, he can go back, he can literally do whatever he wants. This is sOs's playing field.
sOs is going to make one last push to secure himself a shot against life to fight for his second world champion title. Into the natural, up come the drones. There's nothing Rogue can do. He's pushing it. There's the time warp. There's the force field. Everything desperately trying to hold this push for one last chance, for one last breath to fight here in the global finals, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. Every last unit falling, the spine crawlers dying. GG! sOs will go to the grand finals.
3-0 over his teammate, man. This guy, he looks unstoppable as well. What an amazing finals we have ahead of us. I can't believe it. This is like the perfect final for us as StarCraft fans, seeing the 2 previous world champs